She forgot we were married, but I found out why she wanted it that way. The empty side of the bed was the first jolt. Not unusual, given her early starts, but it was the silence, the lack of even a rustle from the kitchen, that truly woke him. Liam O'Connell, 38, a man who had built his life around the quiet certainty of his wife, Amelia, knew something was wrong even before he saw the note. It was clipped to the coffee maker, a clean, precise script he knew intimately, but the words were a punch to the gut. Liam, who are you? And why are you in my house? Please leave. The unraveling. He stared at the note, his mind refusing to process the words. Amelia, his wife of 10 years, a woman of 35 with a mind as sharp as her wit and a laugh that could chase away any shadow, had no idea who he was. Panic, cold and swift, clawed at his throat. He rushed to the kitchen, then to the living room, calling her name. She stood by the front door, her usually warm eyes wide with fear, clutching a small, decorative vase as if ready to defend herself. Her gaze swept over him, devoid of recognition, filled only with suspicion. He tried to explain, to remind her, to pull at threads of shared history. He spoke of their wedding day, her favorite cafe where they'd first met, the silly nicknames they used. Her face remained blank, uncomprehending. He saw the subtle tremor in her hands, the way she edged away from him. It was clear. She genuinely didn't know him. It wasn't anger, or spite. It was a terrifying void. The days that followed blurred into a nightmare of confusion and heartbreak. Liam involved their closest friends, Sarah and Mark, a couple who had known them since university. Sarah, a kind-hearted nurse of 36, gently tried to reintroduce Liam to Amelia. Mark, a pragmatic engineer of 39, tried to find a medical explanation. But Amelia simply retreated further into herself, her fear of Liam growing with each attempt at reconnection. She seemed to remember everything else. Her job as a librarian, her love for antique books, her family history. But Liam, their marriage, their shared life, it was all gone. Doctors were consulted, specialists were flown in, Amelia underwent countless tests. MRIs, cognitive assessments, neurological evaluations. The diagnosis was baffling, a rare form of selective amnesia, seemingly targeting only her relationship with Liam. Her mind was otherwise perfectly intact. She recognized her parents, her brother, her old classmates. But Liam was a stranger. Liam, a usually resilient and optimistic architect, felt his world crumbling. He moved out of their shared home, respecting Amelia's palpable discomfort with his presence. He found a small apartment nearby, a stark, empty space that mirrored the emptiness in his heart. He would sit for hours, staring at photographs of their life together, desperately clinging to memories she no longer shared. He visited her at the library, watching her from a distance, her movements graceful and familiar, yet her eyes held no recognition for him. He saw the polite, distant smile she offered other patrons, a smile she used to reserve only for him, brimming with warmth. The pain was a constant ache. Fragments and familiarities. Despite her amnesia concerning him, Amelia still possessed many of her core traits. She still loved reading old novels, her fingers tracing the worn spines with a familiar reverence. She still preferred Earl Grey tea in the mornings, and her quiet, focused intensity when engrossed in a task was unchanged. Liam would observe these small familiarities from afar, a silent testament to the woman he loved, trapped behind a barrier he couldn't breach. He also noticed a change. Amelia, usually vibrant and expressive, seemed subdued. Her laugh, once so free, was now a rare, polite chuckle. Her eyes, though sharp, carried a subtle weariness, a hint of something unexpressed. It was as if a certain light had dimmed within her. Liam spent his days researching, delving into medical journals, online forums, anything that might shed light on her condition. He found similar cases, but none with the exact, selective nature of Amelia's amnesia. It was always broader, affecting entire periods of life or specific categories of memory. Her situation was unique, and uniquely cruel. He tried to leave her small, non-threatening gifts at her doorstep, a book by her favorite author, a small bouquet of wildflowers. She would accept them with a polite, puzzled expression, sometimes leaving a small, impersonal thank you note. It was like courting a ghost. One afternoon, he saw her in the park, sitting on their usual bench, reading a book. He approached cautiously, keeping his distance. A stray dog, a shaggy terrier, bounded up to her, whining for attention. Amelia, usually so fond of animals, flinched, pulling her hand away. The dog whined again, then nudged her hand. She recoiled, a flash of fear in her eyes, before forcing a hesitant, almost pained pat on its head. It was a subtle reaction, but Liam noticed it. Amelia had always loved dogs, even the boisterous ones. This was unlike her. The hidden trauma. A nagging thought began to form in Liam's mind, a terrible whisper he initially tried to dismiss. What if this amnesia wasn't a random anomaly? What if it was chosen? What if Amelia, on some deep, subconscious level, wanted to forget him? The idea was agonizing, a betrayal worse than any physical pain. He started recalling the months leading up to her amnesia. There had been a subtle shift in their relationship, a quiet tension that had begun to creep in. Their once easy laughter had become more forced. Conversations had grown strained, punctuated by silences that felt heavy, not comfortable. He remembered her increasing withdrawal, her preference for solitude. She'd spend more hours at the library, burying herself in books, even on weekends. He remembered her frequent, almost imperceptible flinches at sudden noises, her increased jumpiness, her tendency to startle. He'd attributed it to stress, to the pressures of work, to the general anxieties of life. Now, he saw it through a different, more chilling lens. He thought back to a specific incident, about 6 months before her amnesia. A car accident. It hadn't been serious, just a fender bender, a minor collision in a busy intersection. Liam had been driving. Amelia had been in the passenger seat. They'd both been shaken, but physically unharmed. He'd dismissed her lingering anxiety as normal post-accident jitters. But what if it wasn't just jitters? He remembered her pale face, her trembling hands, the way her eyes had darted around, as if expecting something worse. He recalled her insistence on taking the bus or walking after that, her subtle reluctance to get into his car again. He'd thought she was just being overly cautious. He decided to visit the site of the accident. It was a busy intersection, always bustling. He stood there for a long time, watching the traffic, trying to recall every detail of that day. And then, a memory, cold and clear, surfaced. A second car. It had spun out of control after their minor collision, narrowly missing a pedestrian. The driver had then sped away, leaving the chaos behind. Liam had been focused on Amelia, on their own minor damage, on exchanging details with the other driver involved in their fender bender. He hadn't paid much attention to the second car, merely noted it. But Amelia, sitting on the passenger side, would have had a clearer view. A direct view of a reckless driver, a near miss, and a subsequent escape. A different trauma. He went to the police station. It took persistence, but he managed to speak to an officer who had been on duty that day. The officer, a gruff but sympathetic man named Inspector Singh, remembered the incident. Not just the fender bender, but the second car. A hit and run, involving a pedestrian who had been badly injured. The driver had never been caught. Liam's blood ran cold. Amelia had witnessed a hit and run. She had seen the impact, perhaps even the driver's face, fleetingly. And then, the driver had vanished. He imagined the horror of it, the feeling of helplessness. He thought back to Amelia's subtle changes. The jumpiness, the fear of sudden noises, her aversion to dogs. Perhaps the pedestrian had been walking a dog. He asked Inspector Singh. The officer confirmed it. An elderly woman, walking her small terrier. Both had been severely injured. Liam felt a fresh wave of despair. Amelia hadn't just been in a minor fender bender. She had witnessed a horrific accident, a hit and run, and the perpetrator had escaped justice. And she had been with him, Liam, at the moment it happened. His mind replayed her reactions in the months that followed. Her withdrawal, her anxiety, her growing fear of the outside world, especially busy places. It wasn't stress. It was trauma. She hadn't forgotten him. She had forgotten their shared experience of that trauma. Or perhaps, she had subconsciously chosen to sever the connection to the source of that terror, him, and the moment they shared. He remembered a quiet conversation with Sarah, the nurse, weeks ago. She'd mentioned, almost as an aside, how sometimes trauma could manifest in strange ways, how the mind could create defenses to protect itself from unbearable memories. Could Amelia's amnesia be such a defense? A desperate, subconscious act to escape the horror she had witnessed, and the person she was with when it happened. The unspoken truth. Liam knew what he had to do. He had to find the driver. Not for justice, not primarily, but for Amelia. To give her closure. To show her that the monster who caused her trauma had been caught. He believed that if that fear, that source of her pain, could be removed, perhaps her mind could heal. Perhaps she could remember him. He began his own investigation, a desperate, silent pursuit. He returned to the accident site, this time with a different focus. He spoke to shopkeepers, to residents, showing them an old, grainy image from the police file of the hit-and-run car, a dark sedan with a distinctive dent. Most remembered little, but one old tea stall owner, a man named Ramesh who had been there for decades, recalled a detail. The car had a specific, faded bumper sticker, a local football team's logo. It was a small detail, but it was something. Liam spent weeks tracking down every dark sedan with that bumper sticker in the city, using old newspaper archives, contacting local fan clubs, even spending hours in car parks. It was a tedious, often disheartening task. He faced dead ends, false leads, and countless moments of despair. He neglected his work, his friends, his own well-being. His obsession was Amelia, and the possibility of bringing her back. He often visited the library, watching her, a ghost haunting a woman who no longer knew him, fueled by the grim determination to solve the puzzle of her lost memories. Then, a breakthrough. A faded newspaper article from a year ago, about a man arrested for a series of minor crimes, mentioned his car. A dark sedan, with a bumper sticker, the same local football team. The name of the man, Rohan Mehta, 42. Liam's heart hammered. He contacted Inspector Singh again, providing the new lead. The inspector, initially skeptical, followed up. Rohan Mehta was indeed the hit-and-run driver. He had been quietly apprehended months ago for other offenses, but the hit-and-run case had remained cold due to lack of strong evidence. The old man at the tea stall had been the key, providing the missing piece that linked Rohan to the crime. The quiet resolution, justice, in a quiet, unassuming way, was served. Rohan Mehta was facing charges for the hit-and-run, among other things. Liam didn't tell Amelia. He couldn't. She wouldn't understand, and it might even exacerbate her fear if she knew the details. But he hoped, with a fierce, burning hope, that the removal of this threat, this unresolved horror, might somehow, subconsciously, allow her mind to let go of its protective amnesia. He still visited her, maintaining his respectful distance. He saw a subtle change, almost imperceptible. Her shoulders seemed a little less tense. Her forced smile, occasionally, seemed to hint at genuine warmth, a flicker of the old Amelia. She still didn't recognize him. But the fear, that sharp, immediate fear she'd once shown, had lessened. It was replaced by a gentle curiosity, a puzzled politeness. One afternoon, he brought her a small, potted jasmine plant, knowing her love for fragrant flowers. She took it from him, her fingers brushing his. For a fleeting moment, her eyes, those beautiful, familiar eyes, seemed to linger on his, a shadow of recognition dancing deep within their depths. A question, unspoken, seemed to pass between them. He left her then, the jasmine plant in her hands, its white blossoms a symbol of fragile hope. He didn't know if she would ever remember him. He didn't know if her mind would ever fully relinquish its grip on that protective void. But he had found out why she wanted it that way. She hadn't forgotten him out of malice or indifference. She had forgotten him because her mind, in its infinite wisdom, had tried to shield her from an unbearable truth, a trauma she had witnessed and he had inadvertently been a part of. Liam returned to his empty apartment, a strange sense of peace settling over him. The bitterness had faded, replaced by understanding and an enduring love that transcended memory. He knew now that her forgetting wasn't a rejection of him, but a defense of her. And in that understanding, he found a quiet, painful resolution. He would continue to wait, to hope, but most importantly, to love her, even if she never knew who he was. Their story, in his heart, remained whole, even if in hers, a crucial chapter was missing.